All right.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Tropilunch of the spring semester. Today, we have a speaker, Dr. Annie Alencar. She's the Director of Science of the Amazon Environmental Research Institute and currently a Bacardi Eminent Fellow at the University of Florida. She holds a degree in geography from the Federal University of Pará in Brazil, a master in remote sensing and GIS from the Boston University, and a PhD in forest resources and conservation from the University of Florida. For nearly 3 decades, she has worked on fire dynamics, deforestation, and forest degradation in the Amazon and the Cerrado biomes, and their links to climate change. Annie coordinates social technologies for social environmental management. It's part of the MAP Biomes Network Coordination and is a member of the Amazon Scientific Panel. Her recognitions include being named a global female leader in fire science in 2018, a Fulbright Amazon Fellow, and one of the world's leading women in machine learning and Earth observation by the Radiant Earth Foundation. So with that, Annie, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all for being here. That is one part of my resume, which is very important and which brings me here. I am a UF alumni. I'm a gator as well. But I'm a TCD gator as well. So I'm a TCD alumni, thanks to Bob and all, Carrie and Jack was my community. I had a very great opportunity being here at UF as a TCD student to engage with very different people from different countries in the Amazon and outside the Amazon, but we're very engaged in having solutions to sustainable development to these tropical regions. So it was really a great time to be here. So I just want to thank you for this.
So for your presentation, if you can stay
here,
the camera can look at you, and then you can change the presentation with this.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
So I put several slides. I hope I can get to half of them. But anyway, the idea here is to show you the major piece of my work recently, which is related not only to produce data, fire data for Brazil and now expanding to other tropical forests, but also what we do with that. What are the elements? What is behind everything that is happening related to this topic of wildfires in Brazil? So just maybe it'll be interesting to have a conversation about this afterwards. I try to be fast, but not. If I get too confused, I just jump maybe some slides because I really want to have some conversation. Please, when I have like around 40 minutes of presentation, just let me know so I know what I can skip. Okay, so I prepared a journey for us here. The first part is just to talk a little bit about fire, because what I have learned from many places that I go to talk about the issue, people have different understanding of the importance of fire, depending on the ecosystems they live. For example, when I was in Florida, I had the opportunity to understand better and get outside of my totally against fire in the Amazon to a place where fire can be positive. And that changed my life, and I actually thank Jack for that a lot. So anyway, fire is an ancestral tool. It is fundamental for our lives since we are in very early stage. Many things people did with fire, and actually it was a major technology that made humanity be and arrive in what we are today: cooking food, protection, warming, lightning, like getting together, tools and technology. Everything is related around fire. And spiritual and ritual, anyway, here's a spiritual ritual. It's really part of an important part of a human being. Is also motivated until today by fire. So that's why one of the things that I love about it. The ecosystems, they also need fire, and no matter what, I mean, they have major categories: fire sensitive, fire dependent, fire independent ecosystems. The way, I mean, the community got together to represent these ecosystems. And those are main characteristics that these ecosystems relate to the cycle of fires and their ability to recover after fire. Look, so fire-sensitive ecosystems such as the forests, the tropical forests mostly, they have a very long, how can I say, period to recover after a natural fire disturbance. So that's why they are more sensitive, because if that occurs very often, it will be very difficult for them to recover. Fire dependent ecosystems and have fire adapted ecosystems or some fire tolerant ecosystems, which are ecosystems that somehow they have some type of occurrence of fire that doesn't impact the ecology and functioning of that ecosystem. And we do have some fire-independent ecosystems, which are ecosystems in which fire, I mean, naturally should be very difficult to be carried out. For example, deserts, like they don't have fuel material enough for the fire to. I mean, this changes. This is if we didn't happen to exist in this place, but we do exist, and we are important carriers of fire. Just bring into Brazil, because this is going to be very important when we talk about the fire sensitive and fire dependent ecosystems, and we talk about the issue of not wanting fire at all. Brazil, because the majority of our ecosystems are fire sensitive ecosystems, so we have about, according to my biomas, 66% of native vegetation in the country, and the majority of it, 72%, are forests, majorly concentrated in the Amazon and Atlantic forest, even though Atlantic forest was very deforested already. But we do have a major ecosystem that is very important for the country for ecosystem services, such as Cerrado and Pantanal. They are dominated by vegetation structures and types that are either adapted or tolerant, and some dependent to fire, which is around 20%. Caatinga, it has been said, we have to actually even work to redo this, because Caatinga, it has become a different ecosystem in terms of their dependence to fire, and it is because of the people. I mean, Caatinga doesn't have enough fuel material alone to carry the fires, but people are kind of changing a little bit the landscape, which has emerged as a very active fire system. But that is when we mixed with human intervention. So this takes us to the main sources of ignition. So when fires started to happen in 2024, like burnt a lot in the Amazon, we were always questioned by reporters or people. I mean, so this was natural fires, so how much of that is natural, how much is not, maybe in the Amazon? Well, what we see from the books is that there are three major natural causes of natural ignitions. And those are lightning, like volcano activities, or like these areas where the rocks, like they just like fall and they, I don't know how to actually, I don't know how to say that, but anyway, in Brazil, we don't have this too. So it's a little bit easier. We do have ignition fires by natural lightning, thorns and things like that, storms. But we do have lots of anthropogenic ignition. Like we have some of them here, deforestation, pasture management, which are like burning exotic grasses that we grew, and also native grasses as well. Also arson. This is not the best photo for arson because this arson is difficult to see, but I try to figure out a new one. Like people like creative, which people go to hunt or to, depending on the conditions, they leave the remains there and then this escape. Burning garbage is really common. Most of the people in the Amazon forest villages, they don't have a very good sanitation or places to treat the garbage. So it's very, people are used to burn their garbage. And also like cleaning the roads, like burning the, so all of those are the main like types of fire, but we do have others, you know. And so we do, as you said a little bit, we have cultural fires, we have subsistence and productive fires, we have ecological fire, we have predatory fires. This is a companion that we put together recently, together with Viviana Bilbao. She's great, by the way, fire scientist that studied the issue of cultural fires. So, and it's very nice because it says that, I mean, it reinforces the idea that fire is a very important technological. But it takes us to the fire regime triangle, which is fire will not happen. I mean, there are other triangles, but I will focus on this one because this is very related to management and to governance, I would say, not management, but governance. For us, it's very difficult to control climate conditions. We are trying to with all these agreements. It's kind of very slow, many steps back. Anyway, fuel material, we can control better, but it's also very hard. But definitely in the Amazon, we have to have hope to control ignition sources. And this is where we have the ability to intervene. And I'm not saying that we have to stop completely the use of fire because of the reasons I already mentioned, but I'm saying that we need to control and govern fire use. It's independent on the ecosystem. So of course, most of the things here and everything that I do and most of my abilities are related, and my expertise are related to the Amazon. I have been learning a lot things from the Cerrado, but really it applies to all the ecosystems. So I brought this from my exit seminar that I gave here in UF. And I think it's still very useful because it clearly shows like so this is 15 years old slide. I know. Yeah. Anyway, so it shows clearly that the condition, the environment, the landscape that we knew in the Amazon, like many, many, many years back, and some places in the Amazon are still like that. We have ignition sources from indigenous communities doing their slash and burn agriculture or hunting, like in their savanna regions, and some eventual, very rare, like lightning strikes. But now we have a totally different part of the Amazon, a totally different configuration. We have a level of fragmentation in some places that are really dangerous for these remaining patches. And we have the spread of ignition sources that are not only related to the act of deforesting, but also what happens after that, which basically, especially we'll see more about that. The thing is, you're talking about this in a moment in which the forest is becoming more flammable. And I just brought this. It's also very nice work by Renata Libonati, which is a meteorologist in Brazil. She put this together, just showing that the days under heat wave conditions that are affecting the Amazon were huge in the past 4 years. I mean, no wonder why we saw all the photos of the Amazon very dry and like reaching to a tipping place where it was very plenty. I heard cases of people saying that the serrapilheira, which with the leaves, how do you call that? Leaf litters. Leaf litter. They were up here walking in some of those forests, just as a way that being like learning from Paulo Brando here, a way in which the plants, they just have to resist the immense drought that we shed leaves. That opens the canopy, changes everything, all the microclimate dimension of that forest. So, little introduction, not so little, but try to at least engage you in the topic. Let's go to the numbers. For us to take action, it's always good to know what's happening, how much, what is being affected. So I'm very happy to be in this position to coordinate this group that belongs to Mapbiomas Network. Mapbiomas is a network of institutions from the civil society, university, and also some startup companies that got together to produce annual land use makeover maps and some other products. It's all available and documented, really easy to access. You can search for it if you work in the Amazon, in the South America now, not for fire, but for land use, and Indonesia, they already have that. We just got this audacious project, I don't know, from TED, which is allowing us to expand that for 70% of the countries. And the idea is not we will do things, it's just we will help to engage locals to do things. So, and that's a very different way to do remote sensing for the ones that work with remote sensing. Because today, you can have one student and produce our land use and government for the entire world. But would that be real? I mean, how good, how close to the reality that will be. So I'm not, even though I know how to do it, and I can do it very fast, I won't be able to say, if I create a map for Bolivia, which just by the side of Brazil, I will do a good job. Because the Bolivians know what happens there. I don't know. So, and this is what is behind Mapbiomas. Anyway, just little commercial here, but just to show you that we did produce these maps, and even though like we have different groups of experts from different biomes in Brazil, so we don't, IPAM produces the data for the Amazon and Cerrado, but the other groups produce the data for the other biomes, and we get and put them together. But with this, we can know at least, and this is under, what can I say, it's underestimated, that we had about more than 206 million hectares burned in this 40-year period that we have data. 20% of our territory. This is too much, too little. We don't know. We don't know. Maybe the Cerrado could burn everything, I mean, except the forests of the rivers and the veredas. But, we don't know, really. But this data is going to be one piece of this puzzle that will try to help us understand better if that's good or bad. Anyway, just showing differently the biomes, we have here at least an understanding of what happened for the Amazon, for example, in the 40 years. So you saw that we had lots of fires here, even though we had some climatic strong events here, but we did have really a policy of huge deforestation. So those things, they kind of talk to each other, and they are going to be important when we think about, okay, we want to reduce fire use, we want to govern fire use, we need to deal with that. But something happened very clearly here in 2024, and maybe that's externality of what is saw from the climate. So we're really living a fire weather condition there. I'm not gonna, otherwise I have just a talk about this graph, so I'm just fast and then take us to so fire frequency, I mean, for the ones that study fire properties, know that the frequency of the fire and the fire return interval and the recurrency in which the fire comes back to the same place is very important. And we really would expect for a place like the Amazonia, which is dominated by tropical forests, humid, sensitive to fire, that you would have some type of distribution like this, like the Amazon forest, where you have one fire, at least in 40 years. I mean, you can have the majority of the forest burned area would happen at least once in that period of 40 years. So maybe in 200 or 1,000 years would happen again in the same place. But look at the distribution of fires in the Amazon. And it's just almost like the Cerrado. Of course, this is all the fires. I'm counting all the fires. I have this for just native vegetation by different types of native vegetation. We are working on a publication on that. And actually, when we released the data, we had a paper, and some of that is there as well. But also another very important information is to understand what is burning, because then we can tackle what needs to be done. And as again, in the Amazon and Atlantic forest, we can see which are fire sensitive ecosystems. We can see very clearly that the majority of what burns, the burned area, is related to land use, mostly pasture fields and mostly planted exotic pasture grasses. So this is the same in the Mata Atlântica. We do have a little bit of agriculture, which is mostly sugarcane. Even is banned now, this is 40 years of data, so we do capture that here. And in the other biomes, Caatinga, Cerrado, Pampa, Pantanal, we have the majority of the burns or the area burn affect native vegetation. And depending on the biome, of course, Pampa is dominated by grasslands, so grasslands will burn more and so. But with this, we can see at least what is happening, what is going on, and you can actually act. Also, the data help us to understand the seasonality, which is another important fire property. If it's happening, we know that there are shifts being appointed for the Amazon in terms of the size of the dry period, and also the level of temperature. So this impacts seasonality of the fire. A fire that happens in the beginning of the dry season is totally different in terms of intensity from a fire that happens in the end of the dry season. And if this dry season is longer, it's going to be more. In 2024, we are doing this mapping, but we identified some areas were burned twice in the same year. Can you believe that, Jack? I mean, that was amazing. You know, in the beginning, it was so dry already from the start that caught fire. So it caught fire, shed all the leaves. In the end of the dry season, caught fire again. The level of impact of the mortality of trees were very high in these regions. Important to know also the fire size, so how fire is increasing or decreasing with time. Also, the areas of less burn, time since less burn, so we can understand where are the frontiers in a way of fire. So 43% is the red here, is happening in these places, at least. So the other ones are old kind of frontiers. All of that is open. You can check it out, mapbiomas.org. Anyway, we did also started to produce last year. We launch every year a collection and started to produce a report that brings all the elements, and all the other countries will have that as well. Anyway, now going to the main part for me at least. How am I with time?
You have like 15 minutes to talk. If you want 15 minutes for a question.
Okay. This could be like different talks I just put together, but anyway. But just bringing back the image of the Amazon. So we have the Brazilian Amazon biome, and I have to. This was something that I got here in Florida as well. When I came here, I thought when you talk about the Amazon, we just had the Brazilian Amazon, and then it was really bad for me talking about that. But I learned that I have to remember that every time, not Brazilian Amazon centric. And so this is the part of the Brazilian Amazon biome. And now, after I tell the story of the Pan Amazon, but this is for, if we have time, I tell you it. But anyway, almost 83% is still standing in different levels of degradation, but it's still there. And the places that were converted, the majority, 88%, are pasture fields. Very bad managed. Part of these pastures are actually an excuse for land grabbing. They're just the easiest land use to prove that the land has an owner. So, and that's part of the problem as well. Anyway, this is what is important about this. I also could give talks about this, but so I don't want to focus that. And we know that there are many forces, and I know Marianne is there, and many forces that move all this level of forces of change in the Amazon, in which, for me, the dispute for land and natural resources is the center. And this has externalities of as deforestation, so land conversion, and more forest fires. Here should have like a climate, like interacting, but anyway, I don't know where it went. But the thing is, so being really general on the main uses of fire, we have like stories in Portuguese. So we have the fire for deforestation, which is this process of using fire to converting like biomass in soil nutrients for either pasture fields mostly, but agriculture as well. But we also have this issue of pasture fields being managed by fire to renew and the grass, but this escape and goes into the forest. So if the forest is resilient, like strong, humid, as used to be, it won't let the fire get in, maybe 100 meters, something like this. But this is what not we are seeing. These numbers are the total burned area, not only forest, and the deforestation curve. So you can see very clearly that there is some correlation between one thing and the other. If you have more deforestation, you have more likelihood of ignition sources. You have more fragmentation, more, how can I say, higher probability of that surrounding forest being affected by fire. But there are some exception years, and we can see that something happens and then fires spread. And those years are impacted by climate conditions. Anyway, so and this is the graph that shows exactly what is only forest fires, and so I'm not accounting here the fires that happen in savanna and either grasslands in the Amazon, just forest, and the other types of burned area, so together. So you can see that there is this oscillation, but the forest, I mean, it's some years, that mostly El Nino years up to maybe here, with just El Nino years, and then after 2005, some other climatic events started to play in a role in the Amazon, like the warming of the Atlantic Ocean in the north, in the south. For example, in 2007, it was more the warming of Atlantic Ocean on the south. But here we had like really strong El Nino here. 2017, we didn't have El Nino anymore, but it was one of the years that burned a lot because of the stress of a very strong El Nino. And in 2024, we did have a very strong one. Anyway, and this is just the same comparison, but just forest fires and deforestation. So you can see that here clearly, you can say that there is a relationship. But somewhere things started to change. And here we can have the spatial distribution of that. You can see it's concentrated in some places, in the Roraima forest, in the Santarém area, in the southern part of the Xingu River, in the northeast of the Pará, are the forests that have been more susceptible to fires. For us to take some action, we need to know which stakeholders are related to it, or are suffering, or are provoking, or both. So just to show you, in 2023, 2024, we got this, and I think this is for the Amazon only. We have the burned area for indigenous lands, private property, settlement projects, undesignated public forest, RS, rural settlements, sorry, this is protected area, other public lands, no information, military area, and Quilombo. So this is not relative, it's total burned area, but we can very easily understand, and we would expect that in private property and in rural settlements, there are a lot of people burning because this is what they do. Most of them are farmers, ranchers, and but the level of a spread of indigenous lands in 2024 was I don't even have a word, was amazing, but not in a good way. I mean, I should say more terrible, maybe catastrophic. Yeah. And this is a very important issue because it is related to the way in which you have the ability to respond. So it's not Another very important contribution, I think, and we are also working on this to update, is where the fires started. And up to October 2024, we mapped that 55% of all the burned area started in a pasture field. So this is, do you think it's a lot? It should be higher, in fact. It was lower because 20-something percent, 25, I think, started inside the forest. And this is what we are investigating now, scientifically speaking. Just because some of them started in undesignated public forests, and instead of, I don't think about a land grabber, but maybe if I put myself in the shoes of a land grabber, and I have to pay people to go there, the forest, pay trucks, people with chainsaw, everything, I would spend a lot. I would be very, somebody can catch me, easy. Anyway, but if the forest is so dry, that if I just set some fire, it will burn, and then I come back and set again and will burn, the likelihood of being caught is going to be very small. And that did happen in the Amazon 2024. It was an opportunity that some people saw to do that. That was not all the fires. As you said, most of them happened inside, but it did contribute to the case that we saw. And we had another technical note, and I didn't put here, but that showed that the reducing of the deforestation did contribute a lot for us not having a much worse condition and impact. This is the study done by Paulo Brando, put together this, that shows that there are many impacts on the forest ecosystem. We see very clearly only one fire can do with the forest. 2 fires in a short period of time can kill that forest. Yeah, and something else is going to be there. Maybe it's not going to be a grass. We know that depends where you are but maybe it's going to be a different. It needs to have enough sources from outside, and I'm not an ecologist, but to populate that system again, to be able to actually not become something else. So, and the recovery, there are many different types of recoveries that can happen in different times. According to this paper by Susan and Paulo Brando, like the thing that is going to come back first is lift and evapotranspiration, just because there will be new trees born or growing after the disturbance, and they will need to do their job of photosynthesis and everything. But then to get the biomass, the diversity, availability of nutrients is going to take a really while. Which, when you think, and goes to the third slides that I presented, that is a sensitive systems, because the natural fire return interval should give a time for a forest to recover. And some of the places need 1,000 years to recover from a natural disturbance. And we are not given that. Like my dissertation showed that some of the places in the Amazon, we have, it was 24 years that I analyzed for small areas in the Amazon, but it showed that there are some places where it had a fire return interval of 6 years. It's a small area compared to the total, but 6 years. What is that? And it's not being deforested. It's there, and it's keeping burning. Anyway, there are some social impacts, socioeconomic impacts on that as well. And I would also have a lecture about this on itself. There are many issues related to that. Losses of production infrastructure, loss of production itself, loss of forest resources, loss of impact on respiratory diseases, other macro airport closure, impacts on transmission lines and road accidents and so on. But this issue is the one that really catches the society, because this is what people are feeling outside of the countryside. So we're just finishing this technical note that shows what were the impacts of 2024 fires for people's health, like breathing, bad air quality. And we had some places, this is an outlier, this is a Coari gas place, but in some places here in the Rondônia, southern part of Amazonas, we had many days, 120 days, with breathing air that is not, that is above the average that the OMS, WHO recommends. Anyway, we get to the solution space. We just did this last year. We went to all the states, Amazon states, and trying to understand what are the gaps in terms of management and governance of fire. So we do think that we need to tackle fire from these three perspectives: fire intelligence, governance and management, and fire suppression and control. So we produced a report. We did several workshops, several visits with these groups. And most of the things we got from this report, I have some copies in my office, is we talked about fire governance and how the institutions, they work together. What are the regulations those states have? What are the strategic plans to deal with fire? How is distributed the competencies to fight fire, to manage fire, to govern fire? How the fire workflows are working? Is there any fire monitoring? What are the systems they use? The resources for fire management and the experiences of integrated fire management that are already in place. This was done together with the Prévio Fogo IBAMA, which is the agency in Brazil that now, after the law, we just had a law that passed in 2024, so the catastrophic fires, they did serve for something, at least, to press the government to have a fire law, fire management law. So, and they are now the agency responsible for taking care of governing fire in Brazil. But they don't talk with the states, because the state fire system is based on a military bombeiros, firefighters, which think that all the fires need to be suppressed. And the Prévio Fogo understands that there are good fires and bad fires. So there is this, how can I say, disconnect vision of what needs to be worked. But it does reflect on how things work and things work together. And this issue of actually having multi-level institutions working together. Anyway, we did this, we produced this, we have one for each state. And now we are going to do another workshop on good experiences, and this was something that they asked. But I think this is, for me, I like maps, so I think this is the heart of the of the whole report. It's a simple map that shows the competencies of acting in fire prevention and control for Brazil. And that shows what? That shows that all this green part has to be the responsibility. It is in the responsibility of the states. So the firefighters should take care of the forest fires. This area here in the red, they are either related to the ICMBio, which is another agency, or IBAMA Prego Fogo. And there is a gray area in which no one wants to take responsibility for, is where all these fires, arson fires, were happening. So just by getting together with all these agencies to agree that this is the case is important, because what happened is people were, okay, this is Marina Silva is guilty for the fires, and also like taking the boots of the firefighters. When you look, I did a trip together to follow some firefighters in Mato Grosso. It was early in the dry season, so not many fires. And they don't see the fire and they go there. They just stay in 193 or 191 and there's a fire, so go there. They had 7 cars in Cuiabá to take care of the vast majority of this part. Maybe there are some other here. And there was a call 700 kilometers from there. And another call 500 kilometers from there, and some other calls, and that's it, 7. In the beginning of so we could count it actually. So there's no way we can govern fire without society, basically. We need community engagement. We need local brigades. We need voluntary brigades. We need private brigades. We need all the agencies work together. So if we finish now, because probably we don't have time anymore, I would say that this is what I want you to understand. And this is what we have to fight for. I don't know how, maybe just showing, let me see, because I think
we have 10 minutes left.
Yeah, so maybe should stop here. And this presentation is just about policy, and that banning fires is not the case. It happened here, and it did some elements in Bolsonaro, because the government said, okay, we have to put the army, but later it didn't work. So it's a great paper from Ana Machado. But really, I stop here and then we can interact a little bit. We think that this is the way of going. And again, the integrated fire management is very well, it's getting more known by people. And I think it's a great framework, because it really encompasses all this thing about fire use and fire governance and fire control, and fire use as a medicine sometimes, and to repair ecosystems of fire, and how to manage, how to interact, make people really think territorially how to deal with this issue, with this technology. Thank you.